Hello, everybody. I'd like to give a big shout out to my millions of fans and not just Dr. Lane, who's going to be grading this. My subject this week on hot topics in gaming is going to be the Bechdel Test. The Bechdel Test was originally conceived by Alison Bechdel in her comic strip Dykes to Watch Out For. It was used to call attention to gender inequality in movies. And the test stated that in a movie, there needed to be two women who talk to each other about something other than a man. Recently, for video games, Elsa Bartley has come up with a new version for that. We need a female character with whom you can interact who doesn't need rescuing and isn't a prostitute. These are fairly basic things, and it's amazing that how many games do not reach this criteria. I'm going to be addressing just some of the biggest games from the last year and a half with this. One of the most recent big games is Batman Arkham Knight. This was released just last month. Batman's pantheon of heroes tends to be very male-oriented. You've got the Joker, the Riddler, the Penguin. In this game, we do have that whole group, but we also have some female characters coming in: Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, Oracle, and Catwoman. Now, Oracle and Catwoman are big parts of this game. Unfortunately, at some point, you do have to rescue both Oracle and Catwoman. So we're not going to be able to give a big check on Arkham Knight being able to pass the Bechdel test. Another huge game that recently came out is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The main storyline in this, protagonist Geralt of Rivia is off to rescue his love Yennefer at the beginning of the game. When we find Yennefer, though, we find out she does not need to be rescued, so we get to stay away from that part of the Bechdel test. They are ex and current lovers, so a lot of their conversation does revolve around that. But there is another main female character in Geralt's young protege, Ciri. She's a little bit of an Ursat's daughter. She does a lot of he trains her, he guides her, that kind of thing. So with her, definitely passes the Bechdel test on that. Also happens to be a phenomenal game. Another huge one that came out recently, Mortal Kombat X. As you may imagine in this game, not a whole lot of room for dialogue, let alone dialogue involving romance. Most of the dialogue that happens is in the form of "I'm going to kick your ass" or some variation thereof. There is a minor love story between Johnny Cage and Sonya, but that is a very minor part of the plot, and the storyline is very much a minor part of the game itself. So we can mostly give Mortal Kombat a pass on that. The other thing that feminists will like about Mortal Kombat X is that they made the female outfits quite a bit less revealing than the predecessors in Mortal Kombat 9, which came out 3 years ago. In that game, some of the female characters like Melina and Katana looked like they may not have had a chance to change as they were coming from an S&M lingerie photo shoot before they got into the fighting arena. One of the other big games, when we switch over to Nintendo side of things, away from the gigantic productions on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, we have The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Now, this is actually a remake of the 2000 game released on the Nintendo 64. Like most Zelda games, and like many Mario games as well, a lot of this story does focus around rescuing a princess. So the only benefit towards that Bechdel test that we can say this one absolutely covers, Zelda isn't a prostitute, at least. Best-selling game so far has been Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Like pretty much every Call of Duty game that's come out before it, it is an entirely male cast. consist pretty much of just going into other places and killing other men. There are very, very, very rarely women in the game at all, and those that are in the game tend to need to be rescued. This is a gigantic no on passing the Bechdel test. One of the absolute worst that you could have in any category, honestly. I'd like to give a big shout out to a few games that we can use in the lightning round of this, whether or not it passes the Bechdel test. We have Titanfall, a big early release on the Xbox. There is absolutely no storyline, only multiplayer, so we don't need to have a Bechdel test to rate that one on. We have FIFA 15, which is entirely about men's soccer. I'm going to go out on a limb and say there are not a whole lot of female characters, and certainly not female characters having deep intellectual conversations in that one. We have Splatoon, which is an even mix between male and female characters, although there is very little dialogue, so not a whole lot to work with there. It doesn't pass the Bechdel test technically. We have Forza Horizon 2, pretty much just a standard racing game. Again, technically doesn't pass the Bechdel test, but also isn't exactly a male-dominated game on its own either. We have Super Smash Brothers and Mario Kart 8. Both are just about different video game characters racing and beating each other up. No preference as to whether they're male or female. They definitely are. The females are definitely not talking about men, and nobody there is a prostitute unless you've got some very weird theories about Princess Peach that I don't want to know about. Going back to some of the more mainstream games, we have South Park: The Stick of Truth, which was it's very much like the TV show. It focuses mainly on 6 elementary-aged boys. The females in the story are kind of ancillary characters. Most of the females are either parents. You've got Kyle's mom and Cartman's mom. And then we've got some of the girls' clubs. They tend to be talking about boys or their kids, so probably not going to pass the Bechdel test. We also have Far Cry 4. You play as AJ, who has been pulled into a conflict in a fictional land that mirrors Tibet. Your side, the Golden Path, is made up fairly evenly of male and female fighters. The only main female non-playable character is Amita, who has zero romantic interest in you or anybody else as far as this game is concerned. Her only interactions with you and other people are about what the path the country is going to go on and what bases you're supposed to blow up and who you are supposed to kill. We have Bayonetta 2, which is entirely about a female, although a very provocatively dressed female, just kicking a tremendous amount of butt on a whole bunch of different demons. No romance, nothing like that, just good old-fashioned violence. We have Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. This is almost an entirely male cast, not just of the humans, most of whom you are rescuing, but also orcs, which you may be able to say that some are female, but they are very much male depicted. The only female in this game really was your wife, and she dies in the first 10 minutes. Later on, the creators fixed this with a DLC patch, which allowed you to play as a woman, but even with that in mind, it does not pass the Bechdel test. The 2 games that I'm leaving for the last are the ones that pass the Bechdel test with flying colors, but for 2 very different reasons. We have Dragon Age Inquisition. You can play as either a male or a female character. You have a lot of different relationships with a lot of different characters throughout the game, and you get to mold them very much as you'd like to. You can interact with every single character as very platonically, or you can try to romance every character that you are have close contact with in the game, every member of your party. So in that case, it passes the Bechdel test because it gives you the power to, sexualize or unsexualize the other characters as you like. The other one on the opposite end of the spectrum is Destiny, which has absolutely no talk about sex in the entire game. There are strong females, there are strong males. You can play as a male or a female. The game boils down to pretty much nothing except just good old-fashioned adventure and killing aliens. So that's just kind of an analysis of the Bechdel test in recent years. My all-time favorite video game that passes the Bechdel test, though, would have to be Portal. The only characters are GLaDOS, who is a computer program technically, but with a very female voice, and Chell, who you play, also a female who does no talking whatsoever. Definitely passes the Bechdel test as far as I'm concerned. And that's been my presentation on the Bechdel test. Thank you very much.